Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. Washington, D.C. called me back regarding the proposed huge changes with regard to the rating schedules for the VA. Now, they are looking at 3 different specific body systems. Respiratory, which would be your sleep apnea, auditory, which would be your tinnitus, and mental health. Now, mental health proposal is actually a positive for veterans. And then we have the other 2, which would be negatives, right? So it would be removing the auditory tinnitus, removing tinnitus as an actual rateable condition. And then the other proposal for sleep apnea is really looking at treatment and if treatment is effective or not. In other words, if you have a CPAP and you're effectively treated, you're looking at a substantially lower rating versus today's version, which is a 50% rating if you are on a CPAP. Now, here's the thing. I reached out to my congressional representative in Washington, D.C. I had them reach out to the VA to check on the status of this because as I read through the Federal Register on this specific topic, what I see is only proposals for the dates, there is no proposed date. In fact, what it does say is table of amendments and effective dates since, and it states here under all these different revised and redesigned and redesignated and what have you, is effective date of final rule. So there is no final rule currently. Now, I want to give you the update that I got from the congressional representative as they reached out to the liaisons at the VA. But before I do, I want to give the backdrop to those that are not fully aware of what sort of proposals have been happening and so forth. Look, the wheels of the government move slow, right? The wheels of the government move slow, and sometimes things take a while. And you may know about it up front and it falls down. So anyway, here we go. I'm going to read this to you. This is old, okay? The proposal, the news release, all of that stuff is, this is from February 15th, 2022. Now, bear with me. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all of that stuff, because it is vitally important that you do that as many hands make light work and pass this information along. Each thumbs up and each minute that you let this thing run is essentially you passing the baton to another veteran. So it's very important that you do that. If you want to support the channel in other ways, consider being a member on the homepage there. Under the members section, you will see a join button. And in any case, let's move on here and jump into this. So I'm going to give the 2 press releases regarding this from back a year and 10 months ago from the VA talking about these proposed changes, okay? Keyword proposed changes, and I'll read these to you and then I'll give you the update that I got from the congressional rep. Again, not everybody's aware, so I got to bring everybody into the fold here. All right, so again, this is a year and 10 months ago. VA proposes updates to rating schedule for respiratory, auditory, and mental health disorders. Again, respiratory would be your sleep apnea, auditory would be your tinnitus, mental health is self-explanatory. Moving on, the Department of Veterans Affairs is proposing changes to the VA schedule of rating disabilities, specifically pertaining to the respiratory, auditory, and mental disorder body systems. The proposed updates to the rating schedule for these conditions will enable VA to incorporate modern medical data and terminology while providing veterans with more accurate and consistent decisions. There's a quotation here. Veterans who currently receive compensation for a service-connected condition in these body systems will not have their disability rating impacted when the VA rating schedule of rating disabilities is updated. That sounds it's going to happen. We'll move on. Said Thomas Murphy, Northeast District Director performing the delegible duties of the Undersecretary for Benefits. Updating the rating schedule allows veterans to receive decisions based on the most current medical knowledge relating to their condition. By incorporating modern medical data and in the assessment of disabilities and how they impact earning capacity. Veterans will receive evaluations which more accurately compensate them for their service-connected disabilities. Proposed updates include modernizing and evaluating rating criteria for sleep apnea using developments in medical knowledge to evaluate it based on its responsiveness to treatment, bringing the rating criteria for sleep apnea more closely in line with the stated purpose of the rating schedule. In other words, if your treatment with a CPAP is, if sleep apnea is responsive to treatment with a CPAP, then everything is working well, and you will have a much lower rating than the 50%. Now, you still can get to a 50%, but you need to have non-responsive kind of to treatment with the CPAP. So anyway, moving on, evaluating tinnitus ringing in the ears as symptoms of the underlying disease which causes it rather than a standalone disability. So in other words, what they're saying is that being exposed to loud noises, mortars, artillery, jet engines, and so forth simply is not enough for tinnitus. You actually need to have some sort of an underlying disease, such as, let's say, Meniere's disease or something like that, in order to claim that. So it's not a standalone, I'm rated for tinnitus. Now, which sucks because there are secondary conditions that can hang off of tinnitus as a service-connected condition, but they're talking about eliminating that. So again, I'm going to jump into kind of, a little bit of the, insights from that congressional staffer here in a moment. Evaluating mental health conditions is the next one, and they say that it's based on a more robust and holistic approach to how it assesses how impactful the disability is to cognition, interpersonal relationships, task completion, life activities, and self-care. Additionally, the proposed evaluation criteria include a 10% minimum, so eliminating the 0% for mental health. So there would be no longer a 0% rating for mental health. They would just start at 10 for having one or more service-connected mental health conditions, and will no longer require, and this part's the important part, it would no longer require the total occupational and social impairment to attain the 100% evaluation for mental health. Now, moving on, last little paragraph here, it says here that there's been no change to a veteran's current rating would occur due to these proposed changes. If the proposed changes are finalized, so now there's a caveat here, or not caveat, there's a contradiction here. The first one said when they go into effect. This one says if the proposed changes are finalized. If is the key word there. Veterans who currently receive compensation for service-connected conditions can apply for increased compensation, but no reduction shall be made unless an improvement in the veteran's disability is shown to have occurred. All right, then it talks about the 60-day window of providing comments regarding the proposed change. Now, obviously, that window has came and went a long time ago. Now, the other press release, we'll call it, issued from the VA is this. Now, remember, this is to set the stage to understand what's happening. The VA has changed rating schedules before. This is not something new. So it is a very viable and possible thing. I'm going to read this press release, then I'm going to go over into the conversation that I had with the congressman's staffer over in D.C. and the conversation that he had with the liaisons at the VA. All right, so this press release, again, is a year and 10 months ago. VA proposes updates to disability rating schedules for respiratory, auditory, and mental health disorder body systems. And again, this was February 15th, 2022, and here we go. In a news release posted today, VA proposed changes to the VA schedule of rating disabilities, specifically pertaining to the respiratory, auditory, and mental health disorder body systems. The changes would incorporate medical advancements for treating certain disabilities and modern medical knowledge to more accurately compensate veterans. So, to compensate them less. So, for the most part, except for the mental health. Anyway, moving on. So, the VA schedule for rating disabilities is used to determine the appropriate level of compensation for each service-connected disability based on the severity of the condition as documented by supporting medical evidence. VA is in the process of updating all the body systems in the schedule of ratings. Okay. Now, remember, the schedule of ratings, I talk about it all the time. This is absolutely something that you should review when you file your claim, because it spells out the criteria for each condition and what rating would be assigned if you have certain signs, symptoms, durations, and so forth. So it's a very, very important document or documents that you can read and research. And again, the VA is in the process of updating all body systems in the rating schedules to reflect modern evaluative, whatever, you know what I mean, criteria based on advancements in medical terminology, diagnostics, and treatment. On February 15th of 2022, the Veterans Benefits Administration will publish proposed rules in the Federal Register regarding changes to the regulations for the two body systems: respiratory system, ear, nose, and throat conditions, and auditory disorders, and mental disorders. Veterans and the public have 60 days to comment on these proposed rules. Since these are proposed changes, they will not affect evaluations of any veteran currently receiving compensation for an impacted disability. Instead, this is an opportunity for veterans and the public to comment on these proposed changes over the next 60 days. VA will consider these comments received and address them in a subsequent final rule. Okay, that's an important piece. Subsequent final rule, which may make these changes effective. So again, this is up in the air, right? According to this. Now, remember that this was a long time ago, a year and 10 months ago. Some of the proposed changes include modernizing the evaluation criteria for sleep apnea by evaluating it based on symptoms responsiveness to treatment. If symptoms are fully treated by a CPAP machine or other treatment, a veteran would be rated at 0% and not receive compensation. VA will award progressively higher percentage evaluations based on how symptomatic the condition remains after treatment. And how do they figure that out? Well, they have you go through sleep studies, right? So this will bring the rating criteria for sleep apnea more closely in line with the stated purpose of the rating schedule, which is to provide evaluations based upon average impairment of earning capacity. So again, they're pointing to earning capacities, and that is what drives the percentages and your compensation. So moving on through this release, for respiratory conditions such as asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, the proposed rule would slightly lower the requirements for a 100% rating. For tinnitus, the proposed change would recognize that symptom within the veteran's broader ailment and provide service-connected compensation for tinnitus through the disease in which it is attributed. So you have to tie your tinnitus to being a symptom of a disease, whatever that may be. Again, I use the example Meniere's disease, which is kind of like a vertigo. Maybe you can't walk super straight. You got a little kind of funny gait going on, and you have some ringing in the ear. The proposed rule for mental health conditions would increase the minimum disability from a 0 to a 10%. The rule would get rid of the dated part of the rating schedule that prevents a veteran from getting a 100% rating for mental health condition if they are able to work. So, in other words, if you are working and you're holding gainful employment, you would still be able to get 100% based on mental health alone. VA will ensure veterans get the compensation they need and deserve, especially when it comes to mental disorders. Under the proposed changes, VA plans to use the new evaluation criteria to more accurately capture the different domains of impairment caused by mental disabilities and provide more adequate compensation for financial losses experienced by veterans with service-connected mental disorders. Rather than assigning an evaluation based on the number and type of symptoms present, these changes would evaluate mental disorders based on how impactful the disability is across 5 domains of impairment: cognition, interpersonal interactions and relationships, task completion, life activities, and navigating environments, and self-care. Veterans, their caregivers, and other partners can read the proposed rules for themselves on the Federal Register, which I have, and are welcome to provide feedback. It gives a couple links here to the different. There's two separate, insertions into the Federal Register. One is for the mental disorders as a standalone, and then the other is for the other conditions. Then it moves on to kind of wrap up here. Once again, there will be no change to any veteran's current rating based on these proposed changes. When the proposed changes are finalized, veterans who currently receive compensation for a service-connected condition can apply for increased compensation, and even if a veteran's symptoms no longer warrant a current evaluation they have based on the finalized changes, no reduction shall be made unless an improvement in the veteran's disability is shown to have occurred based on the last schedule used to assign their evaluation. So in other words, if you were grandfathered in, and they would still use the old schedule to base any improvements on. Since September of 2017, this goes back to what I talked about before. VA has changed rating schedules before. So since September of 2017, VA has updated the rating schedule for the following body systems: dental and oral conditions, endocrine system, gynecological conditions and disorders of the breast, organs and special sense, skin, lymphatic, infectious disease, immune disorders, nutritional deficiencies, musculoskeletal system, muscle injury, and cardiovascular. So again, this is not something new. They've done it before. Now, I know it's been a long time since I've been talking, but it's important to understand the lay of the land when it comes to this stuff, because there's no guarantees on where this is all going to fall. Now, with regard to my phone call to my representative's staffer in DC, they said they would reach out to their liaison at the VA, and then they would get back to me. Now, I will say that this, if you're not aware, has nothing to do with Congress. Okay, this is a department initiative, so it's an administrative initiative. This happens from the president's cabinet, right? So all the different departments within the federal government, right, fall under the president, and that's all their cabinet members, right? All the secretaries of this and that. Congress has no say in what the VA is doing here. So they wanted to make that super clear to me, and I'm just relaying that is the case. And I know this. I already knew this. I was just wanting them to reach out to their people there because they have more contacts than I do. Anyway, so this is an agency / department move. Okay, it is under the proposed. The comments had been made and closed out, and it is still in the realm of pending a final rule. It has to cross that line. It is not a final rule still. There has been some indications out there that this is something that was supposed to magically take effect at some point in time. I personally did not see that anywhere written. Again, what I saw was that the effective date would be of the final rule, whenever that date is. And currently, if I scroll back up to the top, let's see, proposed type, it's still proposed rule. It is not a final rule. So that makes it a little bit hard to say when it's going to take effect. So again, the congressional liaison said that, it is purely at the discretion of the agency. And it does typically take some time. It's usually, they see things linger on for a year or so. And there is no requirements of the VA to notify Congress in any way. They just get to run forward with this. Now, directly from the liaison at the VA, they didn't really give too much information other than Currently it's just still there. There hasn't really been much conversation about it, and it's not really being pushed. Does that mean that it's dead? It's hard to say. I don't like when, personally, and probably all of you, I don't like when things are just hanging out there. You either need to put them to bed or you need to move forward so that way I know what we need to do, right? Because it's a big chess game. So in any case, my next phone call is going to be, and I'll do this in January, is to Senator Tester, who is the chairman of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, and express to him some of my frustrations with this just hanging out there. Do I think that there will be a change? Well, if you go back, again, the best way to know what's going to happen is to read things that have already happened. And that's why I spent so much time up front, okay? There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rating schedules that have been updated for the specific body systems, okay, since 2017. Guess which ones aren't on there? Mental health and respiratory and the hearing. So they have special senses, but it's eye conditions only. So they don't have hearing. So do I personally think that there will be changes? Yes. What are those changes going to include? It's hard to say. The representative that I spoke to, not representative, but the staffer said, at this point, just kind of move forward, and kind of think that nothing's going to happen. I didn't really like that advice because I believe that something is coming. Because if you look back, again, we have all these rating schedules that have already been updated. So it is a matter of time, in my opinion. It's just when. Probably after an election. As we're getting closer, right? So it's probably going to be an after election situation. They're probably not going to bring much of this up during this time of the election coming up within a year. So that's just my 2 cents. So thank you so much for watching. I'll keep a pulse on this, and I will also reach out to the Senator Tester's office and have a conversation, hopefully, with him regarding some of these proposed changes. I get that changes need to happen, but I disagree with some of this stuff. So with that, we'll go ahead and end it there. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.